Welcome to Cohn and Krueger. That's Larry Krueger. I'm Grant Cohn. The Niners just finished the first, I'm going to call it quarter of their season, even though there's 17 games now and they're 2-2. Great defense, bad offense, or improving offense, depending how you look at it. And now I want to look ahead to the next 4 games of the season because it could be more favorable, although the Niners have some new injury issues and some new problems and challenges ahead of them. Larry, how you doing?
Doing great, man. Yesterday was a long day, but a fun day. And I don't know about you. It's like we're not fans. We don't root necessarily. But if you're going to put in the kind of hours that I did yesterday, it's so much. You're so much more enthused by a victory because it's a long day if you lose, if the team loses, and you got to
I'm
sit there and
always
talk about
up
losing.
I'm always up to criticize a team after they lose, and I'm always down to cover a train wreck. But it's more fun to cover a good team than a
Yeah,
bad team. It just is.
right.
So we're not really sure which the Niners are yet. They're 2-2, but let's look at the next 4 opponents. It seems like the schedule is breaking pretty well for them. They got Carolina on the road on a short week. Carolina's terrible. Then they got Atlanta on the road, back-to-back road games, but they're staying in West Virginia, and Atlanta isn't that great. Cordell Patterson's on IR, I think. Then they have Kansas City at home after that. That's tough. And then they have the Rams on the road and then a bye week. I mean, right now, what do you think the Niners do on that stretch, win-loss wise?
Mm. I think they win the next two and lose to Kansas City. And the Ram game,
They're tight.
I would say they beat the Rams. They just seem like they own the Rams.
Yeah,
And I'm
seems
looking
like.
at the one thing about the Rams that came out of yesterday's game is the Rams got a lot of what they wanted to accomplish done. I mean, they dominated the time of possession. They dominated the plays 73-49.
Mhm.
But the 49ers are a lot deeper football team on both sides of the ball and really throughout almost every spot on the roster than the Rams are. So even though the Rams got what they wanted as far as how the way the game kind of carried out, um, 49ers depth ruled the day. So I think the Niners Rams is the advantage 49ers across the board.
And let's just go one by one. So the Niners have
Yeah.
Carolina on the road in a short week. You're thinking trap game, right? Here's a trap game. The Panthers have the worst offense in the league, 32nd in yards, 4.9 yards per play. I mean, they're really bad. So I don't see how the Niners lose to that team. And then Atlanta. Let's look at Atlanta. What are they? They're 2-2, but their best player is Cordell Patterson, who's now hurt, I believe.
Yeah,
So
he's hurt. Whether he's on IR or not, I don't know, but he's definitely hurt.
he's hurt. So that's a problem for them. I mean, Kansas City, that's a really tough game. The Niners may or may not win it. I probably wouldn't pick them to win it, although we don't know who's going to be healthy for either team at that time. But
I
it
think
seems
that's
like,
really tied, Grant, to how Kansas City does the week prior. And I think they have a tough game the week prior, and I forget who their opponent is. But if they win that game the week prior, I think 49ers have a chance to beat Kansas City. Kansas City loses that game prior, I think they're going to be really, really tough to beat in that game with the 49ers.
yep. I think the Niners have a tendency to rush players back from injury a little too much, especially if they feel like they got to have a game. I think this is a great opportunity for the Niners to sit some players. Armstead, Kinlaw, whoever. You don't need those guys to beat. You shouldn't need those guys to beat Carolina or Atlanta. So that's 2 weeks off that you could give. Jimmy Ward. He's coming back from a pretty serious hamstring injury. You don't want him to re-aggravate it. He's in his 30s. He's a DB who needs to run. He doesn't need to play this week. Prepare him slowly. You need him against Kansas City. So I think this is a really good stretch for the 49ers. They kind of weathered the storm, and now they should be able to win the next 2 games and give themselves a 3-game win streak. They should.
I think one of the every team's a little different, but this team, I think one of the keys for this team is going to be how they rest their injured or their
Yeah.
not injured players, but the dinged up
Compromised.
players.
Yeah.
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 When guys are starting to be a little bit compromised and we're in that part of the schedule, you get 5-6 weeks in. I mean, you see it. You go through the locker room, talk to the guys. They'll be like, hey, man, everybody's hurt. Tell me when you're injured. So we get to this point, everybody's battling something. But they're deep enough, Grant, where if they make some smart decisions about who to have up that day and who not to have up, they might be able to kind of nurse some of their injuries back to health for the more important, not more important, but the more challenging games on their schedule. And I think if they do it well, That could be a major key for them this year.
Now that you bring it up, the one thing that kind of concerns me about this team is Kyle's use of running backs. Like, he
Yeah.
doesn't rotate him anymore. It's just Jeff Wilson Jr. and Debo. And in the last game, Jeff Wilson Jr. got 18 carries. You know, he got 18 against Seattle as well. I mean, if you run him into the ground the way you run all your other running backs in the ground, what's next? And we like Jordan Mason, but couldn't he just rotate him and keep him fresh? It seems like he's as good as his running back.
I agree. To me, there was a couple things I would have questioned about yesterday's win. One of them was why in the fourth quarter, when you have a lead and you've already ridden Jeff Wilson hard, and you haven't ridden Juszczyk hard, you haven't given Mason anything, you haven't given Mack anything, you haven't given Tevin Coleman anything, why are you still handing the giveaway runs? And they are giveaway runs. When you're bucking into the center of the line in a run-heavy formation, every guys on the upper rim of the stadium can tell that you're going to run, and so everybody detonates on the running back. Why would you volunteer
Those
8
hits.
to 10 direct hits on your starting running back when you clearly want to use him as your guy? I would have protected Jeff Wilson in the fourth quarter. I would have handed it to Juice. I would have handed it to Mack. I would have handed it to Coleman. I would have handed it to anybody.
That should be Jordan Mason's role on the team. This team's going to be winning a lot in the second half. That's what that guy can do, is wear you down and take hits away from Jeff Wilson, who might be more dynamic.
And if you don't trust Jordan Mason, okay.
Find someone you do.
Go find somebody. Go find a veteran back who's not very good, who you can pick off the street, and you can give him the sacrificial lamb carries to. But
they did that already. I like Marlon Mack. I saw him in the preseason. He looked good. They did it. Kyle needs to give these guys a chance. He needs
give
to
him some
Kevin
carries.
Coleman.
And it was really weird listening to Chris Forster when he was talking about J.P. Mason going into the last game. He's like, well, we'll see how the kid, he looked good in camp and he had a couple nice runs in preseason, but, we'll see what happens when the lights shine brightest. It's almost like they're almost like telling us indirectly, hey, this kid is the moment's too, they say it's like the opposite of Colton McKivitz. They say, oh, the moment's not too big for Colton. They're basically telling you the moment is too big for J.P. Mason. And if that's the case, then have somebody else be up or go get a veteran running back, but save Jeff Wilson, because what if you had gotten Jeff Wilson hurt on his last carry?
What makes them think he's not? What makes them think J.P. Mason isn't ready for the moment? I mean, he's only had one carry. He gained 7 yards. He plays special teams. He's on the field doing things. I mean, I don't understand. It seems like it seems kind of like Kyle is reluctant to play rookies unless he absolutely has to. Like, for example, Talanoa Hufanga, looking like an all-pro, didn't play last year. Why? You're telling me he got way better in the offseason, or Kyle was just a little conservative and was thinking, I'll go with the vet?
Is it even possible? Kyle, Grant, or is it Bobby Turner?
Yeah.
Because it seems like there's young guys at the running back position. Now granted, this team handed the ball to Elijah Mitchell a ton, so he's
but they didn't have a choice. They didn't have a choice. They didn't have a choice. Most of it was
Bobby Turner. Yeah. In some ways, I was thinking yesterday as I'm watching the fourth quarter, man, this would have been a nice spot for Trey Sermon, because you got about a dozen carries. You could hand this guy the ball. Why not?
I'm just hoping that Bobby Turner, now that he's back on the team, he sees what we see, and he gets in Kyle's ear and says, "You gotta give this kid a chance." Because I'm telling you, if Jeff Wilson Jr. gets hurt in the first quarter against Carolina, they could lose that game.
Yeah,
they could lose that game. If Kyle feels like, I can't trust any of these running backs. Now we can't run the ball anymore. Oh well, I don't know. Okay.
Okay, where do you want to find out about J.P. Mason? You want to find out about him in a fourth quarter of a game that you're leading, where if he fumbles, who cares because you got a 2-score lead? Mm-hmm. Or do you want to find out about him for the first time in a regular season game after Jeff Wilson goes out with some stinger, and now
because you overused him?
Back. Yeah,
exactly.
That would be my. I didn't love going for the field goal on fourth and goal or whatever it was from the 1.5. I wanted to see them, go for the touchdown there, and I didn't love the usage of Jeff Wilson. Other than that, I thought it was a pretty damn good Sunday or Monday for the Niners.
Yeah, very, very good. 48 carries the last 3 games for him. Not trying to be, naggers, people who nag. Not trying to do that. Just trying to point out something that could potentially, we were trying to keep Trey Lance healthy. I said, hey, Kyle, don't use Trey Lance as a fullback. Hey, Kyle, don't keep doing this with Jeff Wilson Jr., the 16, 18 carries a game. You don't need to do it. It's not necessary. And the answer isn't give more carries to Debo. It's you keep all these running backs every year and then you don't use them.
You're paying a fullback a ton.
Yeah.
Why not use your fullback?
Why? Especially when you do use him, he does really good things.
I'll tell you what I wanted to see in the game that was frustrating to watch. I watched Kansas City the night before. Kansas City got into a 4th and goal. They had their backup tight end do a wildcat snap as Mahomes started pointing off to the left, and the Buccaneers were all focused on Mahomes pointing, and they didn't defend the tight end taking the snap and going in for 2 yards. I would have liked to seen Juszczyk, with Garoppolo pointing over here, Juszczyk take the direct snap and get an offensive lineman behind him and push him into the end zone.
I'd love it.
I would have loved to have seen that.
That's
instead of the field goal.
That's good. Official BNA Music 88 says Kyle's the defensive special and Kittle as OT1. I think it's funny if he should rebrand himself as a defensive coach. Actually, this is my brainchild over here. You thought I was I'm a defensive coach, and also Kittle is now he's a left tackle or right. What is he? He's the 6th offensive lineman for the Niners right now.
I don't understand his usage either
at all.
What are they not? They don't want to use him at all as a receiver anymore.
I mean, I keep hearing people say, well, they need him they need to keep him in and block. Well, couldn't Charlie Warner do that? Like, don't you want Kittle to run some routes and catch some passes? But I don't understand that at all. I don't get that.
I don't either. Especially with Dwelly dinged. Personally, I'd love to see Kittle used more as a receiver, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's health wise. Maybe they're trying because he did have a groin. Maybe he feels more comfortable not sprinting down the field and cutting.
Perhaps.
Maybe they're trying to save the groin for one more week. I don't know.
It's true. That's possible. Niner fan 85 says Casey faces the Bills before they face the Niners. That will be tough for them. That's good knowledge.
That's what I'm saying. So if they beat the Bills, I think the 49ers are viable to beat Kansas City.
Absolutely.
If they lose to the Bills,
right?
The way that everybody knows there's one team in each conference that gets the bye, and you don't want to go to Buffalo. I mean, if Buffalo hosts that game in January, Buffalo will be favored. If Kansas City hosts that game in January, Kansas City will be favored. So that's a really important home field advantage. I think that game could have a huge impact on the Kansas City team that the Niners see.
Yeah, hard to see Kansas City losing 2 games in a row. I see what you mean.
Right.
C. Turley says, watching the TB-KC game, no way Mahomes makes these circus plays against the Niner defense. A lot of those plays could have been pick sixes. The Niners defense is fast. Probably faster than it was when he saw it in the Super Bowl. The Gold Rush 561 says, love that the Niners won yesterday, but let's just remember, even though we dominated, it was still a one-possession game with 6 minutes to go before pick six. It's true. It's true.
That pick six was huge. Absolutely huge. All the more reason that I wanted to go for it because I've seen the 49ers get run over a couple times already by not scoring enough points. So I wanted to see them go for more points instead of the field goal. But, man, Hufanga.
Yeah, because it was starting to look like the pass rush. Sometimes the Niners' great pass rush gets tired in the fourth quarter, and the Rams were moving the ball on that drive. They were in Niners territory, and then Talanoa, pulled a rabbit out of his hat, but he saved the day.
He's incredible. And I'll say this, too. I thought the 49ers' depth on defense, I thought, ruled the day. Because, look at the guy. Look at Menahue. Look at Ebukam. Look at some of these guys that they've got nobody talks about. Look at Kevin Givens.
Right, because they're down to their second stringers in the middle on that D-line. And you don't notice anything. Yeah, no, you don't notice at all.
They just keep coming.
All right, let's talk left tackle. So the Niners don't have many weaknesses right now, but they're going to have to get through the next 4 games at least with their third string left tackle, whoever that might be. It's looking like it's Jalen Moore for now. He finished the game. Colton McKivitz sprained MCL, just like Azeez Al-Shaair and Elijah Mitchell. Could miss 4, 6, 8 weeks. Guess we don't know. How dire is this? What have you seen from Jalen Moore, and do you think the Niners can win games, plural, with him at left tackle?
It's a huge question. I saw when he first got into the lineup in the preseason, a year ago, I
Yeah.
saw a guy who looked like a plug and play, ready to roll offensive tackle. Now, he might not have elite feet for a left tackle spot, but to me, he seemed plenty good enough to play right tackle.
Hmm.
But then it's like since that point, we've seen clear regression.
Hmm.
And when he played extensive snaps earlier this year, his feet looked so slow that he looked like overmatched by anybody with any movement ability at all. Like he was going to be a total liability in pass coverage. Or pass
Hmm.
protection.
Hmm.
I just think that they have to test him a lot and really work on his feet and really work on getting out of his stance, and just moving his feet, doing whatever they can to try to help him move his feet, because you're still talking about prototypical size and strength, long arms. There's a lot to like about Jalen Moore as a tackle prospect, but he's had a couple reps that make you say, "Uh oh, that guy's going to get your quarterback put on the IR." So when he looks good, Grant, I think he looks capable of being an NFL starting right tackle who could, maybe play half a game as a situational left tackle and be serviceable. But on the bad snaps, he looks like he's not NFL.
Hmm.
Should not be playing tackle.
Hmm.
Might be a
Hmm.
guard.
Yeah.
So somewhere in there's reality. He's probably not as good as the guy who looked like a plug and play starter in the preseason when he started the entire preseason, I think, at tackle.
Hmm.
But he's probably not quite as bad as the guy who was just looking like his feet were in cement a
Hmm.
couple weeks ago when he was getting some runs. So he's got the talent. They got a great coach. Coach him up. Get him ready. I know it's
Yeah.
easier said than done, but I don't think they're going to find a street free agent any better.
Yeah, it seems like what they have to do. I mean, he's not great. I don't think he's particularly good, but he wasn't an issue last night. They didn't give up any sacks. So what the Niners have to do is basically keep playing like last night. Get
Get the
an
ball
early
out.
lead, get the ball out quick, run the ball.
Yeah.
Because if they fall behind and they have to pass, he's in trouble. If they're in 3rd and 10, he's in trouble.
Yeah.
So they avoided all of that last night. And if they can continue to avoid that, they should be able to against Carolina, Atlanta, and the Rams. They've shown that they can do that against the Rams. Then great. Against Kansas City, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. They score a lot of points, and it's possible that he's going to be put in situations where his lack of
Well,
talent
I'm a
will
little
get exposed.
concerned, to be honest, about Carolina too, because they got Brian Burns, and Brian
It's
Burns is a
true.
beast.
He's really good.
He's their left defensive end.
He's really good.
They've got Yatir Gross Matos, the big kid from Penn State. He's at the right defensive end spot. If you could match him up more with Gross Matos, I think you'd do better than Burns. As far
Yeah.
as Atlanta, what's Atlanta's uh, what's their depth chart at defensive end? I haven't really checked them out too much this year as far as who they have
Yeah.
off the edges, but it's Taquan Graham and Okundeji, who you played at,
Okay.
I think, West Virginia, started
Okay.
with the Steelers.
Okay. Yeah. I
So,
mean, not the
oh, he's at
greatest. They
Notre
still have
Dame.
Grady
Actually, he's at
Jarrett,
Notre
but
Dame
he's in the
too.
middle. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have.
Yeah.
So Atlanta doesn't have the big time edge guys,
Yeah.
but Brian Burns is as good as it gets in this league. So I would
And Kansas City
definitely
has
game
Frank
plan,
Clark.
and Frank Clark's really good. So
Yeah.
I would chip the heck out of Brian Burns this week.
So yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting if the Niners do become like a Super Bowl contender. They're going to have to weather this part of the season, and they did this in 2019. If I remember correctly, there was a long stretch where both Joe Staley and Mike McGlinchey were out, and they won all the games with Justin School out there. So look, if Jalen Moore doesn't work out, they could try Daniel Brunskill, who isn't quite in football shape yet, but he will be soon. And if he doesn't work out, there's my favorite player on the team. I think he's in the practice squad, Jason Poe, who's probably 5'11". Is that too short to play left tackle?
Yes,
Is it? Yes. It's just.
but I mean, it's
Yes.
more of an arm length than anything,
Yeah.
because it's being able to lock out and then have. That was my concern with McKivitz, is he's kind of a
Yeah.
short arm guy, but um,
Yeah.
at this point, I'll say this. I mean, they do have a really good O-line coach, and if you can play call kind of around your weaknesses, that could help you. I don't want to say Trent's overrated, but they can get away without Trent in the run game. I think where they're going to miss him is against the elite speed rushers.
Yeah. But again, the Niners aren't really built to pass, aren't trying to pass, aren't pushing the ball down the field. Like if they had John Elway, or Kurt Warner, and they were really trying to push the ball down the field to Isaac Bruce, then yeah, you would freaking need Trent Williams. But for what the Niners do on offense, he's kind of wasted. It's like the ball's out in a second and a half, and it's a 5-yard throw. But at least you have the best left tackle in football.
Yeah,
You know?
he's intimidating. He's good, obviously. As a run blocker and a pass blocker. But you're right. If they were Tampa, Tampa. But Brady with Tampa doesn't do what Brady did with New England. Brady with Tampa's down the field, and he's 45. Well, if that's the case, then your left tackle is vital. But if you can get it out, play with some rhythm, run the ball, maybe you can get away with it for a few weeks. In a perverse way, this could benefit the 49ers because Jalen Moore needs to play to get better. He needs reps to get better. And if they're going to ever lean on him, and he's on the roster, if they're ever going to lean on him in a big situation, then it might be advantageous to get him a few reps. And why not do it in week 5 against Carolina when you're favored, and week 6 against Atlanta when you're favored, and maybe this will benefit them late in the year when Trent comes back and he goes out for a series, but it's a big series late in the year. Maybe you can throw Jalen Moore in there, and some of that experience will pay off. We'll see.
That's true. Jose Luis Martinez says, "What's up, Grant from AZ? My son and I are big fans. Keep up the good work. If Jimmy wins us the Super Bowl, what happens with Trey next year?" Man, you're getting way ahead of yourself, Jose, but thank you. I don't know,
That's
man.
Definitely a Monday after a win kind of a question.
It is, right? Yeah, I don't know. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. They haven't won 2 games in a row yet this year.
But I think it is safe to say the quarterback on the 49ers that is standing in the winner's circle when they get Super Bowl number 6 is sticking around.
I would think so.
I don't care. Jimmy?
I'm not sure it's going to be him.
I don't care who it is. That guy's
I'm not sure it's going to be any of those 3, but I would think so if they make it. Javel says, trying to be positive, however, I've seen this movie. If we're not playoff hunting, does Trey get reps this year for an explosive year in 2023? Thoughts? They have already said no. I mean, he's probably going to get back into practice at some point, but I don't think they want to rush him back, which probably is smart.
Yeah.
God forbid you get him hurt again.
Yeah, I mean, he needs reps for sure.
Do you think the Niners will stay out of South for Do you think the Niners will stay out south for the back-to-back road games? Yeah, they're going to be in West Virginia. I'm going to be there too. West Virginia.
What do you think of
the Greenbrier? It doesn't get any more fun than that. No, I've never been. It's going to be fun. I heard they have an Applebee's there, which is nice.
Have you been to West Virginia?
No. Have you?
Oh, gosh. Good luck.
I'm going to be there for 2 nights. Then I'm going to go immediately to Atlanta and spend some time with my wife in Atlanta. Seth says I'd take TB release over Jimmy's quick release any day of the week. You saw how fast he was getting the ball out against KC. Also, Atlanta is a trap game. Atlanta's 2-2 as well. So they seem to be doing all right. All right, so the news of the day is that Jimmy Ward and Jason Verrett are going to be practicing tomorrow for the first time this year. They're still on IR, and the way it works is it's like a 3-week practice window. So once they start, you have 3 weeks to activate them off IR. So this doesn't mean they're going to play next week, but it does mean that they could be playing relatively soon. What do you expect for each one individually?
I mean, these are 2. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. These are 2 excellent football players. Verrett is an excellent football player who's just hurt all the time.
Yeah.
But when he plays, he's excellent. I mean, you're talking about Pro Bowl caliber feet, reactions, hand placement, knowledge.
They're as good as anyone on the defense. I mean, they're as good as anyone on the defense. Yeah.
And I think Ward, outside of Bosa, might be their best defensive player. I mean, maybe Afonga now. People are talking about Afonga. Seriously. Jimmy Ward covers like a corner, hits like a linebacker, can play anywhere, can literally play anywhere. Yeah. He's like I would say he's the equivalent of your 5-iron if you're a golfer. You can putt with your 5-iron, you can tee off with your 5-iron.
Sure.
I mean, that's Jimmy Ward. I mean, he's just so versatile. They can't do anything but get better. It just makes them deeper. He immediately starts for Tayshaun Gibson. Then do we see D'Amico experiment with some 3 safety looks? Possibly. Verrett, I think, may make them make a decision on Ambry Thomas. I mean, you don't have endless roster spots. Verrett probably
future for Ambry. Yeah.
I mean, where's Ambry? Because Ambry started slow last year, built up, but now he started slow this year. You don't get a second year to start slow. So I'm not getting what's going on with Ambry Thomas, but I got to think if I'm Ambry, I'm not feeling too good if Verrett hits the field and stays healthy because Verrett's probably better than Ambry. He's a smarter player than Ambry. And if Verrett's healthy, he's going to get that spot.
Yeah, I'm thinking that they're on different timelines. I'm thinking Jimmy Ward could be back pretty soon, but there's no reason to play him against, well, hold on. There's no reason to play him against Carolina. But Atlanta has Kyle Pitts. So if he's healthy for that game, it'd be nice because Kyle Pitts is one of the only guys who's going to really hurt you. And then the next week, they got Travis Kelce. So really, the sooner Jimmy Ward could come back, the better. Jason Verrett, I don't think you're trying to bring him back to rush him in the starting lineup because so far, Travarius Ward and Emmanuel Mosley are both playing like at an A level. So I think Verrett's more of like long-term depth, ace up your sleeve. But yeah, he would be taking Ambry Thomas's spot as like the next man up if one of those two were to get hurt.
I wouldn't want to deplete the inventory. I think I would show a ton of patience because in my mind, and I'm sure you probably feel the same way. There's only so many games that you're going to get out of Verrett. So don't put him out there until you really need to, or you're up against it. You got to make a decision because, I don't know how many football games he has in his body. If you can save him a couple in, October and maybe have him fresher for more important games in December, I would do that. As far as Jimmy Ward, I think Jimmy Ward is one of the best players on the team. And even though I love Gibson and I think he's a productive interceptor and I like him, but I just don't. Come on. I mean, when Jimmy Ward's ready to roll, you get him back out there, and I'm really eager to see how much better they are because he's terrific.
Also, I'm sure you could find certain packages to have three safeties on the field. Instead of going nickel with nickel with three corners, you can go nickel with three safeties. Yeah. Depending on what you're trying to do. If it's first,
the big nickel. Yeah.
The big nickel. All right. So the Niners defense is number one in the league. Points, yards, it's elite. But it really hasn't been tested the way it's going to be tested when they face the Chiefs and Bucks and certain teams left coming up on the schedule. So what do you think is the number one question that's still unanswered about this defense that looks so impenetrable right now?
How good they truly are against the run at the point.
Yep.
That's it. That's my concern because Hufanga has been so good as a box safety in the cover three. He's seeing it. He knows his formations. He's in his playbook. He knows what's coming, and when he sees it, he's not hesitating. But he's so good that we don't know if Givens and Ridgeway and Kinlaw and Armstead, if these guys can really stand up to a big physical power back running it up the gut. Denver committed to 33 runs because they believe that there was some weakness there. And I think that's an indication. Other teams will tell you about your team and your weaknesses and strengths by how they attack you. And I thought that game was an indication that Denver felt like if you go to the run between the tackles and stick with it, it will benefit you by the fourth quarter. So I'm a little concerned about just, without DJ, just how good's Armstead? How good's Kinlaw? How good's Givens? How good's the, Ridgeway? How good is the Niner interior actually against a big physical running team that's going to commit to it?
Yeah, I think it may not be that it's a weakness, but the rest of the Niners defense is so strong, you have to attack something. And it seems like passing's tough against the Niners defense because the pass rush is so good and the secondary is so good. And then running sideways against the Niners defense doesn't seem to work out good. It seems like the Niners defense is faster than your offense, and that Dre Greenlaw is going to beat you to the edge every time. If you have any prayer against the Niners, you got to go straight ahead against them, right up the middle. And it seems like they haven't really faced a team that could do it really well yet. But look at Kansas City. They're not an overwhelming running team, but they can run the ball effectively. They have two running backs this year, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Isaiah Pacheco, who are averaging about 5 yards a carry. So they can at least test the Niners that way while throwing the ball all around the field. That's going to be a really interesting test for the Niners defense. If they're all-time great, they'll show it in that game.
Yeah. No, I mean, and if Hufanga keeps making plays against the run and he attacks the mesh point like, he's Troy Polamalu in his prime, then maybe Kinlaw and Armstead don't need to be as good as DJ in the middle. Maybe they can get away with it. I'll tell you the one part about the Niners that makes me go, wow, is that obviously Bosa is super special. We all know that. Everybody knows that. But it's the other guys that are just playing with their hair on fire. Ebukam. I've never seen Ebukam play this hard. Charles Omenihu. Omenihu's lighter, faster, and the motor's crazy. Drake Jackson is such a fun kid to watch. And then the guy who plays the hardest of any 49er that I can tell is Kerry Hyder. My God. Kerry Hyder plays every football game like it's Super Bowl Sunday, and if he loses, he's going to be killed. I mean, it's just like Kerry Hyder is a damn good football player, and his motor is crazy revs so high. So to me, that's the thing. They got a lot of talent, but they got 5 guys that aren't named Bosa who can come off the edge, who all play with this motor that's nonstop. That's scary.
Absolutely. And like Bosa has 6 sacks through 4 games. He could break records this year, but Ebukam has 3 sacks through 4 games. He's quietly having a great year. And I think it's cool the way the Niners are getting these sacks. It's not just guys going straight ahead, winning one-on-one. It's a lot of very sophisticated games and stunts. Like, did D'Amico sit down with Vic Fangio this offseason? This feels very Fangio-esque. Not to take anything away from D'Amico, but this is exactly the kind of stuff Fangio was doing 10 years ago, and I know he was either thinking about being a consultant or he was coming out to practices. Anyway.
Well, I'll tell you the other thing that, so okay, if you said Niner defense, give me the brief overview. Well, Bosa and Armstead are difference makers up front. Warner's a difference maker. And then you'd say, oh, okay, Jimmy Ward's kind of a difference maker. And now you look at it and you're like, wait a second. Charvarius Ward is a difference maker. Hafanga makes a huge difference. Yeah. So you got like 3 difference makers in your
Mosley's no slouch. You know
Mosley's no slouch. Playing the best ball of his career. Drake Greenlaw right now is on fire.
Samson, yes he is. Yes he is. Dre Greenlaw's on fire. Samson Ebukam is on fire. Like this defense is crazy. Again, it hasn't really been tested the way it will, but so far so good. Damn.
Yeah. There's a lot. They got like headliner difference makers, but then they got guys behind them at all 3 levels of the D. This Niner team, the more I watch them, Grant reminds me of the 2000 Ravens, who it's interesting. Brian Billick was thought of as a great offensive coach, like Kyle, but they had a terrible offense that year with a quarterback that made a lot of mistakes in Dilfer. That's Garoppolo. And then they had this kick-ass defense that was awesome, like at every spot. And that's the Niners right now on defense. So to me, they're giving me a 2000 Ravens vibe. And that to me also should say, hey, Kyle, let's get this offensive thing going. Yeah. Because if you can get any momentum going offensively, you're probably going to wind up in the conference championship game again.
The problem with the 2000 Ravens, that's a great comparison. I see it. But the thing is, that was 20 years ago. Rules were different. And now, they beat Kerry Collins in the Super Bowl, Like, now if the Niners make it to the Super Bowl, you're going to have to beat probably Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, and all the rules are on their side. It's not even fair anymore. It's not like 20 years ago. You can't touch them. You can't if you look at them out of the side of your eye, it's a 15-yard. If you Buffalo eye them, it's a 15-yard penalty. Nah. I mean, the offense is going to have to eventually come around and score more than 16 points. They can't have Trent Dilfer. I don't think the equivalent of Trent Dilfer could win a Super Bowl in 2022.
I agree.
But Jimmy might be better than Trent. Can you be Brad Johnson?
Kyle might
Alex
be
Smith?
better than Billick.
There you go. I think he is.
But that is kind of an interesting one because Billick was the Vikings coach when they had Moss and they had that team that scored ridiculous points. But then he also was the coach of a team that won the Super Bowl that had one of the worst offenses we've ever seen.
Yeah, they had Jamal Lewis. He was,
and they had Shannon Sharp, didn't they?
Oh, they might have. If this team had Jamal Lewis, they would win the Super Bowl. But they don't. Their running backs get hurt. Stop using Jeff Wilson like he's Jamal Lewis. We have to fly a banner over.
Jeff Wilson is a great guy to interview, by the way. I talked to him last week, and I just this guy's a tough guy, man.
Yeah, he is.
Great tough guy.
Zachary Kelway says, I would like to see Grant apologize to Kyle more. Well, I mean, we were really critical of him last week. I had to walk some of that back. Jose Luis Martinez says, will you be going to Mexico City? I will. Absolutely. Seth Harvey says Jay Ward will be back for Travis Kelce. He might even be back
that'll
for
be a battle.
Pitts. Yeah, it will. It will. He won't miss that. I guarantee he won't miss that. Yanni Vander Balen says, you think next year Lance will tell Kyle to F off when he calls a run play for him and audibles out of it? Doesn't seem to be Trey's style.
Trey's too good of a
I don't
kid
know.
to tell anybody to F off.
Yeah, Josh Wyatt says, just watch the All-22. The O-line was awful all night. No push, and no one could anchor in pass pro, yet no sacks. Credit to Kyle, or is that JG? It's both. It's the plan, it's the execution. Let's give it to both of them. But that's how the Niners always play the Rams. And for whatever reason, the Rams can't take away the quick stuff. They just play off, they play soft, and they're like, go ahead, throw slants. Please, throw slants. I don't know why.
Yeah, the Rams are an interesting defense, aren't they? I mean, I wasn't sure what to expect with them adding Bobby Wagner, but man, they were not impressive last night defensively. You know who absolutely was like two different players. I almost had to like see if it was the same guy. In the NFC Championship game, how awesome was Ashawn Robinson? Where was he
was
last
dominant.
night?
Yep.
It was like he wasn't on the field.
Yeah. All right, so we got a question. Play out a scenario where the Panthers win. Okay. Let's see what they got. Let's see. Well, they got Christian McCaffrey.
I'll give you one.
Okay.
Brian Burns just destroys Jalen Moore and ruins the 49ers afternoon, and that's it. I mean,
Christian McCaffrey has a good game between the tackles, and this is a weakness apparently. Also, Jeff Wilson Jr. gets overused, and Kyle Hurts gets another running back injured and doesn't have faith in the rest of his running backs, shut down the run game, puts the game in Jimmy's hands, and you know what happens next. I mean, that could all happen. That could happen.
DJ Moore has his bust out game.
Yep.
I mean, this is another team that they got a rookie left tackle who's damn good. The kid from NC State, Ekwonu. But then they also have a bunch of receivers that just haven't. It's funny when you change out the quarterback. It doesn't matter if who it is. It's like those reps between the quarterback and the receivers. It's like it takes a while to build that up. And so DJ Moore's damn good. And Robbie Anderson ain't bad. Shai Smith ain't bad. Chenault ain't bad. Terrace Marshall ain't bad. I mean, they've got
Baker Mayfield ain't bad.
But nobody's played together. And like I watched that Arizona game. I watched the red zone, and I saw too much of Arizona, Carolina. But Carolina on offense, there's no chemistry at all between Baker and his receivers. And it shows.
You know who I think is bad on that team in Carolina? The coach. Matt Rule.
They're saying he might get dumped.
He's been there way too long.
He's coaching for his gig.
He's not. How many wins does he have in 4 years? Like 10? Like, when does he ever win games? Anyway, Mark F says just sitting around waiting for Hafunga Palomalu Head and Shoulders commercial. That should be next week. Jack Johnson says, I think Kittle groin is still tender. That injury limits your speed and change direction, but not strength. So he can block, but shouldn't run too much. Why Ross D isn't getting more targets? He's hurt. He's got a rib. That's true. And I always make such a big deal about Kittle and his injuries. I guess it's good to be smart with him and not get him.
Well, and you think about it. What kind of patterns is Kittle typically going to run? Little cuts, right? 8 to 12 yard, in cuts, out cuts. And that's your groin re-aggravator. So maybe they're just trying to stay away from, having him. Once he got the ball in his hands, I think he doesn't think ever about any of his injuries. So it might be good to just not feature him.
Albert Sue says when D'Amico eventually leaves as a head coach, will he suffer the same fate as Saleh and be last in DVOA? He can't take any players or Chris Kosaric. If he wouldn't leave for McDaniel, he won't go with D'Amico. Are the Jets that bad on defense?
No, the Jets are good on defense. I don't know what the guy's talking about. I just watched Jets Steelers. Jets defense was balling, man. They were flying all over the place. Now, they got E.J. Mosley. They got D.J. Reed on that defense. LaMarcus Joyner, Sauce Gardner. I mean, they got some guys. Carl Lawson made a horrendous late hit that hurt them. But, I mean, this D line's no joke. They got Quinnen Williams. They got Sheldon Rankins. I mean, I think the Jets look pretty good on defense, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think Saleh's fate, his job and on that team is really tied to Zach Wilson more than the defense. So, Niner Fan 85 says, Grant, what kind of road trip music will you be listening to when you drive from Carolina to Atlanta? Southern rap the whole way. I like to be I like to listen to the music of the place where I'm from. I don't know why. Defense is going to destroy the Panthers. D'Amico is auditioning for that head coaching job. Well, he's doing one hell of an audition so far.
Yeah, he is. He's going to get a gig for sure.
Okay, this is the last topic we have for the day, and it's kind of a downer, but I don't think of it as a downer. I'm just trying to be proactive. This is quality control.
Was that you that ran out on the field last night?
Oh, God. No, I wouldn't have got smacked like that. What are you doing going to the sideline? Stay in the middle of the field where you have space. The sideline's not your friend.
At least you could always say, hey, man, I can take a hit from Bobby Wagner.
Yeah. I don't know if he could take it, though. Is that guy okay?
I don't know,
get a follow-up on that.
Whoever the NFL's general counsel is like, no.
Twice it happened in the game.
What if Bobby Wagner kills that guy?
I know. But it was actually a great moment. I loved it. Bobby Wagner was right to do it.
Except the field got torched right there.
It did. And, some poor security guard tore his AC or really hurt his knee. I would sue that guy. I would sue that. You hurt me. Okay. So the Niners are winning, but it's clear their offense isn't good enough and it needs to get better. And I think what's amazing is the second half. They can put together a good script, but it seems like whether they win or not depends on whether they have a big enough lead at halftime because they can't score in the second half. Hufanga can. Hufanga has scored 7 points in the second half this year. The Niners offense has scored 16. That's not good enough. What do you think is going on here? And this has been an issue for Kyle at times in the past.
Well, there's two things going on. One, you have games. You got the Bears game, which the monsoon killed the fourth quarter.
True.
So
that's true.
That's part of that statistical deal.
That's true.
Then you also have games where the 49ers had a 20-point lead against Seattle, and they stopped trying to do anything other than be real vanilla, run the ball and pound and run the clock down.
That's true.
So I think they lose their motivation. They take their foot off the gas pedal. And they're a team that struggles to throw when you have to throw, especially when they had Trey. But Jimmy also struggles to throw when he has to throw. And their O-line, you've already kind of referenced it in this live stream. Their O-line really is fine if you can stay even on the chains. But if you have to throw, their O-line struggles to block. So they struggle to pass it when they're behind, and then they struggle to run it when they're ahead.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the imaginative stuff that you see is first half stuff, not in the second half.
Yes.
You cook all those things together, add in the monsoon, and that's what we're looking at.
I also kind of feel like Kyle is a bit of a gimmick coach. Like he has these plays that he calls up for big plays, like the use check play. It's not something you call a lot. It works because you don't call it very much. If maybe you call it once a year. And so he's wide open. He has a few of those every game, and maybe he just calls them all in the first half, doesn't save them until the fourth quarter. It seems like he gets deeper into the game, and he's out of those, I don't know what you would call them, gimmick plays, specialty plays, quick chunk plays that you can only call once. And then he's just kind of down to, like you said, it's vanilla offense. That kind of seems to be the issue to me. I don't know. Maybe he should save some stuff. Save some stuff.
Like you'll see some run-heavy looks and then pass out of a run-heavy pre-snap look in the first half. Mm-hmm. They get into the second half, they get a run-heavy look, it's run.
Yeah.
In the second half, they get a pass-happy look, it's pass.
Yeah.
It's like they stop deceiving people. And that's why Jeff Wilson, his numbers are actually better than what he had last night because they probably handed him the ball 4 or 5 times where it's a run-heavy formation, and everybody, including the Niners and all the Rams defenders, everybody knows it's going to be a run, and it's a run, and then they stuff it. So it's like, is that reflective on Wilson? No. Is it reflective on the line? Well, you could say so, but not really. It's really kind of more of just like, hey, we're trying to run out the clock, and we're not going to create a lot of deception to it. I just think that when the Niners get into defined looks in the second half of these games, they're not giving you a defined run look and giving you a play action pass. It's a defined run look, and then they're bucking into the line for 1 yard or negative 1 yard and letting the seconds click off the play clock and try to put the game away just by ineffective running.
It seems like really good offenses, like when they want to put a game away, they go to like their bread and butter, a certain concept in the run game or the pass game that works really well most of the time, and defenses can't stop. I don't know the Niners have that on offense in the run game or the pass game. So that's why I say gimmick plays. Like, they're these plays that Kyle can call up, but it's not things the Niners do a lot. That throw to Juszczyk, you call it once a game. Or the throw to Charlie Warner, you call it once a game. It's not something you come back to because the defense has seen it and it's going to be exactly the same. So maybe you got to save some of those for later in the game is all I'm saying, Kyle. If you have 6 of them, don't call them all in the first half because you know you're in trouble if you have to go in a whole half without any of them. I don't know what you want. Your specialty plays, save some for the site. I mean, because that way you can even call them with more confidence, knowing that they'll work. If you set them up and look at what the other team is doing, what coverages they're calling, you can probably predict what coverage you're going to get in the third quarter better than the first quarter. I'm just saying.
Also, I mean,
you got to score more than 3 points in the second half.
No question. And also, it's like you start going to what you know you can do. And like, what do the Niners know they can do with their receivers? They probably the most sure-handed, sure route runner is probably Jawan Jennings. So, I mean, Garoppolo going to Jawan Jennings. I mean, if they, it's just not, it would really help if they had a couple of go-to things that worked all the time, but they really don't.
Yeah. Jamal Armstrong says, Jimmy Ward, E-Man conundrum. If you can only keep one, who do you keep? Give me E-Man. Just entering prime years, cornerback more premium than safety. Can get similar value out of T. Gibson or any replacement safety that you get for Ward. I'd keep E-Man. I think I would agree with that. I mean, look at how as good as Jimmy Ward is. Look what they're doing without him. Could they be this good right now without Mosley? If you just put in Ambry Thomas, not sure.
I did an interview the other day with Jimmy Ward, and he's like, if you hit a guy in his ribs or if you hit him in his patella, and then he had this like sly grin. It's like Jimmy Ward just loves to hit. He loves to play football. It's like that's like one of those debates that's not really a debate, right? I mean, they don't play the same position, but I would say the way that Mosley is playing right now, how ridiculously fast did he rally up at the beginning of that Denver game to smoke the receiver? I mean, he came flying up. I mean, he's just throwing his body around, and guys only do that when they're healthy. So we've seen Mosley have a lot of injuries through the years, but he's healthy. And now you got Ward on the other side, kind of Charvarius kind of challenging him as far as who's the number one guy in the room. The Niners, those two corners right now are really, really good.
Absolutely. You might want to keep them around for a while.
Yeah.
Shardal says, hi, Grant. Who are your top 5 Niners of all time? Jerry Rice, Ronnie Lott, Joe Montana, Steve Young. Who's 5? Bill Walsh? Does he count as a Niner?
How about T.O.? Where's T.O. in there?
You can put T.O. in there if you want.
There's a lot of good ones, that's for sure.
A lot of good ones. Brandon Ziegler says,
I love Michael Carter, by the way.
I thought you were going to say Michael Crabtree. I was like, that was.
Remember Michael Carter? Michael Carter was more your dad's era, but
yes,
Michael Carter was just awesome. Awesome.
For my time. Brandon says, hey, Grant, not to toot my own horn, but I just said that to you and your dad last stream, I should get paid for this stuff, man. That Kruegs. Love you, Brandon. Thank you. I think that's it. I think that's our show for today. Jose, what do you got going on? Anything?
I'm going to do a live stream tonight. I did one earlier today. I'm going to do another one tonight, probably around 9:00. And, by the way, yesterday before the game, so I had a rare opportunity. I wasn't doing 95.7 the game pregame because it was a Monday and they were going with Damon and Ratto. So I was there early. And so I went in the parking lot. Went in the parking lot with the peeps and did kind of like an Art Man Presents thing. And I just walked around with Ryan with the camera and the open mic. Dude, there were so many people that were like, dude, I love your segment with Grant on Mondays, man. I mean, I did a shot of Patron with, seriously, before
that
the
is
game.
So funny.
Guys like, dude, you got to do a shot of Patron. So yeah, there's a lot of fans of your channel out in the lot.
There's a lot of people with good.
People get loose before the game, man. I mean, they're throwing back big tequila, alcohol, barbecuing.
So by the end of the day, they're pretty sloshed.
There was a whiff in the crowd. I can't really describe it, but yeah, I mean, there was a lot of people having a lot of good times.
Do you see after the game, like when we go into the auditorium for the post-game press conference, there's fans that can like stand right there behind a curtain and they shout. So we walk in there like, yeah. I'm like, I didn't play, man. Thanks, though. I appreciate it. It's nice, though. It's a nice
Seriously,
shot
the
to
fans,
the ego.
the faithful, and you know what?
The
I
faithful.
get it. The home games, I get it now. It's like, man, people love their Niners, but they really love tailgating. They love the drinking, the partying, the barbecuing. Oh man, what a scene in the lot yesterday was great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. I'll be back tomorrow-ish. Yeah, Niners have practice tomorrow. I'll see you then. Take care.